Hello and welcome to We Turned Out Okay. This is the show where we are always working to help you get good behavior from your kids, feel seen, heard, and cared for in your life, and feel happy inside. And I am so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. I'm Karen Locke-Culp. I'm the founder of this show. I'm the creator of WeTurnedOutOK.com. I'm a writer, a speaker, most recently the creator of a subscription-only monthly playbook to help parents keep going even in difficult circumstances. And I am super excited because my guest today is Meghan Leahy. She is the parenting expert for the Washington Post. She's the mother of 3 daughters, the author of Parenting Outside the Lines, a book that I cannot wait to get into today. She's got degrees in English, school counseling, and she's a certified parent coach. And we are going to talk about all kinds of stuff today. Very cool stuff. Welcome, Meghan. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
It's a blast. This is one of my, actually, this may be my very first interview in 2021. I took a very long break. I'd been in the hospital in October and I sort of have had a long recovery. But what the nice thing is that I've got my mojo back. I've got my energy level back, and I'm very excited to jump into this today. So welcome, and I'm glad you're my first one for 2021.
I'm tickled. Thank you. It feels now even more special. I'll be even more sparkly.
So there's so much that I want to get into. I noticed that you talked about on your website, which we will link to in the show notes, everybody.
Yep.
You talk about the ever-changing dynamics of family and children and how that was really a draw for you into the world of teaching and coaching.
Yes.
And I felt like exactly the same way. When you wrote that, I was like, that's exactly how I feel. I personally have always been fascinated with like language acquisition, but at the same time, it never occurred to me until I was a parent that like what language acquisition is people trying to communicate. Like there was such a, I was looking at it on this empirical, interesting level, but people trying to communicate is a whole different can of worms. And when I think about the ever dynamics of family, what's your first memory of that sort of showing up in your life?
Oh my God. My first pregnancy.
Yeah.
She wouldn't turn. She wouldn't go head down.
Oh.
It was the beginning of, make God laugh, make a plan. Which is also, just your willingness to accept that change is going to happen. And I was ready to, squat on the hay and have this natural birth and, make the noises. And my OBGYN, who is still my OBGYN, Dr. Loveland, shout out. She put her hand on my shoulder after we had done the moxibustion and where they burn an herb near your toe and the baby turns. And we had done all the things except for the manual outside because they were going to have to give me a spinal for that. And I was like, wait, what? Hold on. And she put her hand on my shoulder and she was like, welcome to parenting. Right? Like,
yeah,
it ain't going to go how you think.
Yeah. You might have some expectations, but you can expect that they won't come true the way that you think.
And I was like, yeah, good lesson. But it took me, I don't know, what's today?
How old are your girls?
17, 13, and 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still in it with like, that's not how I thought that would go. Seems like good intentions don't just take you everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like these kids are their own people. Gosh darn it. So I would say as soon as I got pregnant, it didn't go as expected. It's been ever changing. And as soon as I was a great baby mom, I was like killing it in the baby world because it's like the ultimate caretaking. It's the ultimate mother duck with the little goslings. I controlled everything. I was a natural. And then as soon as willpower emerged, things went left.
As soon as they were like, oh no, I've got power that I want to assert in the world.
Yeah. And if you're doing a good job as a parent, they will individuate. They will become their own people, but we don't like it. It's not convenient.
So what's really interesting is I think because I had postpartum, I had undiagnosed postpartum depression for the whole first year of my first kid's life.
Worse.
And
Yeah.
I used to say, like, if I could just shop out the first year, that would be so good. And I had the opposite experience of you. I felt like a disaster as a baby mom. And it was only once things started to get like they started to hit the milestones that like I'd learned about and the the things that were happening were actually happening. And I was crippled by worry and guilt and all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. And I think I still was even when they were older, but it did get easier to say like, oh, what I'm seeing, what I'm observing is what's supposed to happen, and that's okay. I didn't have that frame of reference with babies. So
Yeah, isn't that a funny thing too? And I like to tell parents when I coach them, like, you don't have to be like amazing at every stage,
yeah.
and like everybody has something to offer. I think I can count on my two hands how much my dad has hugged me, but that's not how I experience his love.
Mhm.
It's experienced in another way. Um, and that's okay, right? I don't need to take that story to therapy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of ways to love people. It's why we're built with so many senses and these complex brains.
Oh, I love that idea.
So yeah, but if you look out in the common culture, American culture of parenting, it can start to feel really narrow about what you should be doing and how you should be parenting. But
And
yeah.
we were just before we hit record, we were actually talking about this very idea that in both of our coaching practices, we are seeing like unprecedented anxiety and worry and fear. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh man, it's a wreck. When the pandemic hit, I said to my husband, he's a business owner, I'm a business owner. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, I don't know, like if business will freeze up. No, that was not the case.
Yeah.
People are on the struggle bus and they're miserable. Um, and so, like, for instance, I had an amazing couple this morning. Only good parents call me. And when I say good, I mean they have their shit together, right?
Mhm.
Because bad parents don't get support. They don't know they're bad.
Yeah.
They're just over there like fucking their kids up. So, and by that I, aim a lot of love at them because there's a lot of sad
This
people.
is hard, right? This
Right.
is and we're
Right.
we're at varying degrees of knowledge, ability,
Totally.
anxiety
Totally.
level. But I love that. I mean, I feel the same way. The people who call me are the ones who are open to change, I think is maybe how I would say it.
And even just sometimes they're not even open to change, but they're cognizant enough to see and feel the suffering.
Yeah.
So I have met parents that, because of their own trauma and or setup in life and or all the different factors, cannot even see the suffering or don't have the capacity to feel it.
Mm,
Um, and that's when I'm like, oh shit. I have nothing but all heart and empathy for those parents because I don't think anyone is, true sociopathology, right? Like sociopaths are so rare,
mhm.
right? Everyone else, it's just been conditioned out of them. Anyway, I was helping some people this morning and they have twin 8-year-olds and a 3-year-old. And it's just like crazy town,
Mhm.
right? I mean, everyone's locked up together. Um, the routines, the dark of the winter,
Yeah.
the fatigue. The kids are so sick of each other. They don't have the outlet. And everybody wants the fighting to stop. And so I've seen this year, it's coming up on a year, it's just being like, I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm like, we are not going to stop fighting. Like, we're not going to stop fighting. So
Yeah.
let's not make it worse when it happens and mitigate what leads up to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how can you crunch humans in like this together
For so long.
for so long without outlets
Yeah.
of connection and movement and and all these things, and not fight?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just last week I had I had a very grown-up temper tantrum on my 16-year-old. And I remember that day just thinking like, am I qualified to do this job that I'm doing?
No. Listen, the experts are the worst. When I wrote my book, and my kids were like, we're going to write a tell-all and we're going on the doctors to show the doctors, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz. And I'm like, great. It'll just be more press for me.
Yeah.
No, like we teach what we need to learn.
I love that idea. Yes. Talk a little bit more about that. Yes. We teach what we need to learn.
Well, I find that people are drawn to me because I am not over here like, no, like I've got it figured out. I have it figured out theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my book learning is solid. I can tell you some stuff. Love, though, is the problem. Love is the problem. Don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful problem, but I can help anyone because I don't love them or their kids.
Yeah.
I have love for them
as
my fellow human, but I love my kids, which means that I am necessarily over involved in outcomes.
Yeah.
Or I am involved in past stories in my head. Or I'm involved in my own childhood.
All these things. Oh my gosh. So can I tell you my story?
Yeah.
Because it so gets into the inability to be objective. So I went into the hospital in October with a condition called diverticulitis.
I know that. Yes.
It's
awful.
It's an awful thing. It's the second time. It's only the second time in 9 years that I've had it. But it was extra, I know, right? Knock on wood. It was extra special. It was extra specially traumatic because I have a tendon disorder that arose as a result of the medication I was given initially. The antibiotics that I was given caused, they've since been shown to cause tendon rupture, but it was so long ago that nobody knew. And I live with this today. I mean, it's really debilitating.
Insult to injury.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
literally.
One of our kids needed his gallbladder. He's 20 and he needed his gallbladder out last year. Like there are a lot of food, because diverticulitis is a food-related disease. Usually it's because you're not eating enough fiber and you're not getting enough liquid is basically the two ingredients there. And so my 16-year-old last week sort of pranced out of his room, grabbed a piece of white bread and stood in front of me eating it. Like in this sort of like, watch me kind of way. And I had a moment where I just like, what I teach is, the opposite of what I did. What I did was I said, listen, you're going to put that piece of bread down right now. And you are, and my voice is getting louder. And I'm like, and you are going to go into that kitchen and you are going to find, you're going to look at the writing on the packages and you're going to find things with at least 8 grams of fiber in them. And you are going to eat that. And I lost my patience with him. And we were able to have very soon after. And I think this is for me where the parent coaching comes in. As soon as I calmed down, I was like, wow, that was like very wrong. So, so I apologized. When I did that, I was crying. We were able to, and I was able to say, like, I'm linking this back to like my own health and how horrible it's been to go through this. I don't want you to go through that. Right. And then, and he said, in the end of it, after all, what he basically said was, you know what, I am going to eat these things that I have found. He says, there's less of a taint to it now. I was like, well, good that, it was a roundabout way, but I'm glad it happened that way. So.
Well, and can I tell you something about your story that I really like, or that I appreciate, or that I think should be said? I coach a lot of parents, right? So for as long as humans have kind of been walking around the earth, okay, that's too much. But our culture went from children not heard, smack them in the face, go to your room, right?
Yep.
And then we went to, when you hit mommy, it makes me feel sad, right? Like we swung into this pendulum of positivity that became weakness. I don't think the positive parenting movement is weak, right? At its core, it's very strong.
Yep.
But in lieu of hitting our kids and screaming at them, which is proven to not work. I mean, it works immediately. It's a beautiful behavioral tool. It just happens to like fuck people up royally.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But in lieu of that, we have become weak. And parents are chronically and constantly stuffing down every feeling they have.
Yeah.
And chronically and constantly rehearsing and trying to find the best way to say something.
Yeah.
And let me reach your heart. And sometimes shit needs to be said.
Yeah. It just needs to be,
And
laid out.
like, there's so much, it seems like we've given our kids so much room to be human, beautiful, but none to ourselves.
Mm.
None. Right? So I have these parents, I want to stop yelling. I'm like, good luck, become a robot, call me. Call me when you get your download. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to yell. I don't want to lose my patience. I've actually had to coach parents to yell at their kids. I don't know that you're going to have someone on here, right, that will tell you that, but I've had to get them in the mirror and do things like stop, right? Like use, not go berserk,
No.
but use their power, use
Yeah.
their leadership, use their voice. Say that's enough.
Yes.
Right?
And there's a real quality to that. It's not, I've lost my temper and I'm just screaming bloody murder and swearing at them. And it's not, you know what I coach on a lot is ending things that don't sound like a question.
Oh,
right?
girl, choices are the worst. Who started that choice shit? Right.
I like two choices, but only sometimes, right? But it sounds like what you're getting at is there needs to be, there's a continuum of parenting, right? There's
Yes.
abuse over here. There's authoritarianism. There's just very bad. But on the other side of that continuum
It's chaos and weakness.
and permissiveness. That's so we need to incorporate things from both ends of that in order for kids to feel safe. If we're not setting boundaries, they're not feeling safe. So I think that's where I feel like I love this idea, because like there does need to be a kind of firmness, but they're also
and I call it, I'm about to release a tween and teen class, an online class, and I call it finding your messy middle.
Yeah.
So when I take a permissive parent, they're not going to land really in the middle. They're just going to kind of try and inch,
yeah.
right? They're not going to be me. I boss around leaves. I have such a strong case of counter will. I have a shirt that says, "You're not the boss of me." Right? Like, we are who we are.
Yeah.
And we're given to our kids for a reason, and they're given to us for a reason. So I don't see anyone as broken.
Yeah.
But we can start to move toward, like your point, a little bit of the middle. A little bit. Right.
It's not about everybody ending at one perfect spot. It's where are you comfortable? Like you were saying before, you can count them on one hand the number of hugs you've had from your dad. But there was something special there, that put you on that place on the continuum that was just right.
Yeah, he paid attention to me in ways that made me feel really important. So he would bring home work problems and ask me he would ask me what I thought he should do.
Oh wow. What was his work?
He was a banker.
Wow.
And so he would be having, problems with his coworkers, and I would give him advice and he would write it down and he would report to me how it went.
Oh my gosh.
So can you imagine?
For you.
Right. And I'd be like, "Dad, how'd it go?" Or he'd leave, Time magazines out on the counter circled and say, "Read this. I want to discuss it with you later." Right. So I'd be like, "Dad, the HIV epidemic." He'd be like, "Yeah, so let's learn about that." Right. I felt relevant and important.
Yeah.
And that's a form of connection.
Yeah. So true. It makes me think of, I've seen this with my own kids in cooking, or even I've seen it even when I was a preschool teacher, but like, if you give a kid a spoon and you say, "Can you taste this? And just let me know, does it need more salt?" I mean, they take that so seriously, and they're eating things and trying things that maybe they wouldn't have before. And all you did was say, "What do you think?"
I know. And nobody wants to think it's that simple.
Yeah.
Right. Like people want to create a behavior chart for starting new foods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just make your food, serve your food, eat your food.
Yeah.
And just like work through it. Like, just don't let everything be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this is a good place to bring up, we're going to get to the book very soon, but before we do, you recently published, or the Washington Post recently published, you're their parenting coach, and they published an article of yours, or an answer to a question, and I've already lost it in my notes. Oh, there it is. The article was called, somebody wrote in and basically they were saying, my bright teen is skipping homework and failing classes, and I don't know what to do. And I found your answer to be incredibly compelling because it gets back into, there's so much right now in this pandemic is so much more important than academics, right? Than academic learning. We got to have the social and emotional stuff figured out first before we can learn anything. I mean, before we can get any kind of academic learning in. But what I loved about it was you were gentle, but you were also firm. I mean, you were really like, listen, you've got to see this from a different perspective, Mom. Right?
Yeah. I was a kid who failed out of school a lot. So I relate to kids off the rails. I don't know these kids that listened and were good, and I wasn't bad inside, like bad kids rarely are, right? But
yeah,
I don't relate to the kids that and I also relate to the mother. So I relate to both people in that story. And you'll notice a theme in all my columns, it's always relationship first. It's always, but like you said, it's never been more important than in the pandemic. The kids who are most endangered, we don't know where they are. They are not logging in for class. They were in danger before the pandemic. A lot of our kids, it's simply a skills issue that can be caught up on later. Math, reading, writing. Yeah, nobody likes to fall behind. Nobody likes to have a lost year. Nobody wanted this, but here we are. If you can't keep your relationship intact, you won't be able to get to those skills either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Like that's what's so important to think about. The relationship's got to come first.
And failure is a sign of discouragement. Like kids don't want to be bad. They don't want to fail. They don't want to not do homework. They don't want to be the loser. They don't want to be the disappointment.
You said something just before. You said I wasn't bad inside. Right. But bad kids rarely are. And I wondered if I could ask you a little bit more about that.
As you know, it's very complex. So every human is born with a nervous system that is calibrated the way it is through genetics and sperm meets egg, right? So you have this little human born, whoever they are, then into an environment. And there you go. From there, you have well-meaning people sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have awful people. But you have a kid, when I see a quote unquote bad kid, I see a kid doing the best they can with a muddy interior world.
Yeah.
They have set up a level. Dr. Neufeld, who's my mentor, he doesn't know that, but I'm a certified Neufeld facilitator, so I see him as my mentor. But he describes that when you have to develop coping mechanisms, you can imagine it as thick little walls around your heart. And the bad can't get in, but neither can the good. Right?
Yeah.
So when a kid walls up and they, I don't care. I don't care about grades. I don't care about you. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
I know I just gestured at
What
I
was going to say is that was a gesture from my childhood. That was an Italian.
Totally.
That was an Italian way of telling somebody to F off.
Totally. Yeah, I grew up near Little Italy in Wilmington. And so I see these kids as discouraged, stuck, misunderstood, a loss of tenderness, a loss of innocence, scared. feeling unsafe, either physically or emotionally.
Yeah.
And what's really hard is it can be perceived that way. You can be parenting your ass off and have a kid who doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
It's a real effort, which goes to show it's not always what you do. So I see struggling kids with a lot of empathy, because again, sociopathology is very low.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this was a problem before the pandemic, and we've only seen it worsen in the pandemic. And I one of the changes that I hope comes about as a result is, I mean, so some of the, on the positive side, I have seen, the parents that I work with closely, like, we'll have a meeting and I'll say, what are you hoping to take out of this? Like, this has been awful, of course. Is there anything that has this changed for the better with you and your family? And almost universally, it comes back to things like, we have more time to just spend in the woods. We have more time to ride bikes. We have more time to, one mom recently said, like, in this, or coming out of this, what I want is for my kids to go to bed knowing that I love them, knowing that they are loved. And like, that is just, I think that's the pinnacle of so, like, if we can communicate that, then other things can come in, and it does have to, it does get into understanding that no matter what their behavior is, they are literally doing the best they can.
Yeah, and isn't that such a kind way to see, like, our fellow humans, but especially our kids?
Mm-hmm.
Because my brain, one of my messages is, my kids are trying to ruin my life.
Yeah.
So, right, when my house is a wreck because there's 2 dogs and 3 kids and we're smushed into this little house in DC and everything's a wreck and nothing's working, my panic brain will say, everyone's purposely torturing me.
Yeah.
They're trying to do this, right? And you can actually train your brain to catch that and say, no, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they're not. Yeah, do we need, like, a little more structure? Sure. Okay, yeah, do they need to, like, pick it up a little? Sure. But nobody's trying here.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to kill me.
Nobody's trying to kill me. What is one, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what's one way that someone could retrain their brain?
Oh, I'm a big fan. So throughout my book, the funny thing with coaching is everyone's like, get out a journal. If somebody tells me to get out a journal, I want to throat punch them. How many empty journals do I have? Like, from all price points.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the more expensive it was, the more likely you were going to write in it, right?
A fountain pen, like I'm, Jane Austen somewhere. Okay. So my favorite technique is, well, obviously you have to name it to change it, right? You have to know the sensations in your body and how that translates to your brain. So does your jaw tighten? Does your stomach hurt? Do your shoulders go up? Does your chest get tight? Right? And then what are your automatic thoughts? He's always like this. She'll never remember. They'll never change. It doesn't matter what are your automatic thoughts. And then in order to start replacing them, you have to give yourself a tremendous amount of empathy and love yourself, because you can't offer it out if you're not giving it to yourself.
Yeah.
I do not like offering myself empathy or love, right? I'm allergic to that. So that's usually my work. And then I can shine it out. But then I have them do a lot of Post-its and phone alerts, right? So if bedtime is, and it almost always is with little kids, hell.
Yeah. Yep. It's pretty rough. Bath and bed.
I train the parents to start putting the alerts on around 4:35 about what they're going to do and say instead.
Oh, I love that.
I'd steal it, friend.
Thing on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
Because
love
guess what?
that.
I'd rather cut my leg off than be without my phone. It's always near me. So, yeah. And Post-its wherever you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. In the book, you talk about who's the zombie here is a question that I remember you asking. Like, who's the screen zombie? Is it your kid or is it you? And I mean, as much as I hate to have to think about that question in reference to myself, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to the fact that maybe I'm the screen zombie sometimes anyway.
Yeah. And after I've been talking to crying parents all day or writing about crying parents or reading, right, I want to sit with words with friends.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to doom scroll. I want to watch Bravo and reality TV and women throwing white wine at each other. I don't want to hear about my kids' interior lives or their problems, which is a burnout issue, which people have.
Yeah. So much more, and maybe even now, right? But
right. And so the answer isn't to not zone out. You deserve a zone out. Everyone does. Every parent deserves to check out.
yeah.
It's compartmentalizing it and saying. So I will say to my kids, I'm going to do words with friends for 15 minutes on the couch. And then you have me.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the look up, look down, look up, look down, look up, look down, which
Yeah.
is like the rudest, right?
I love that you bring that up. And that is something that I've been relatively successful at, I think, but especially in the pandemic, especially with the doom scrolling early on, I started to notice myself like, oh, what do you, hang on, just what? And I have taken to literally shutting turning the phone over, putting it away, putting the tablet lid down, putting the laptop lid down. And what I've noticed, now my kids are older, but what I've noticed is that they do the same thing. They're respecting me in the same way now, which I just feel like, wow, this feels so good.
No, I think, listen, they're older, so they have a little bit more maturity to be able to not go down that cycle, and little kids are more easily sucked in. But the role modeling works. Yeah, with the little kids, you really do have to maybe take it or, have more structure around it. But it matters because whatever you're looking at is what you're paying attention to.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes. Yeah.
Period. So, right. And parents get so mad because they'll say to their kids, 10 more minutes. I need you to help me snip the green beans. And the kid's going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm like, they never heard you. If they're gaming, they never heard you. You could be like, I'm going to cut off both your feet in 10 minutes and serve them in the stew. And they're like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
But I catch myself doing it too, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
the kids are, and I'm, sound cool. Yeah. And then the teacher said, what? Yeah. I don't know what they're saying to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's so good to remember that that we can't ask of them anything that we're not actually doing ourselves, I think is one way of thinking about it. Right.
And when we have something to do that's important, to give them the consideration of telling them that and don't pretend to listen.
Yeah. And really say, I love the,
because we have jobs, right? Like we're making money.
Yep. Yeah.
Like we're doing our thing. So if something has to be done, you say, listen, I love you and I want to hear you. I got to do this. But I love you enough to tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not try and do half-ass both.
Yeah. Yes. And I think the other thing is that a lot of times, especially kids, don't have words for their feelings about that or what is happening. They can't even describe it.
Completely.
Yeah. I'm remembering one time when my oldest was like 3. He was really little. And he was very verbal, pretty early on. I said before, like language acquisition is the real thing. And we're just such verbal people in my family, right? Very talkative, very singy, that sort of thing. But there was this one day where I was angry with him. I don't remember what he had done. I mean, I think about this now and it just makes me feel so bad. Like, what could he possibly have done at 3 to merit me shouting at him or something like that?
3s are hard.
It's true. But what I did was I didn't stop with the yelling. Like I didn't finish it and move on. And so my body language, the tone of my voice, there was like for the next few minutes, I was still acting mad at him. And what he finally said was, Mama, can you please he said something like, "Mama, can you please stop that look? Or can you please stop that face?" Something like that. And I sat up and was like, I felt like I'd been smacked because wow, I really had been extra punishing him for this. And he
Mhm.
didn't know what it was. I mean, it's just, they can take in so much and not understand what they're experiencing it, but they don't have words for it. They don't know what it means. And so it can be so frustrating.
Yeah, what's that saying? I was with a parent encouragement program in Kensington, Maryland. Um, oh, kids are keen observers and poor interpreters.
Yeah.
So essentially, I talk to my clients and my people a lot about energy matching and it matching your kid's energy, which is problematic. And then when your energy is angry, frustrated, sad, worried, say it.
Yeah.
Say, well, I'm still, we're okay. I'm still kind of feeling pissed. I'm
Yeah.
still kind of feeling it, but we're good. Our relationship is good. We are intact.
Yeah.
I love you. And I'm still kind of feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That,
because you can't just drop the feeling. You can't just turn that off either.
right. And again, I'm sure you find this that parents put themselves in emotional pretzels to pretend or act their way out of feelings.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, we are the most complicated mammals on earth. We are born with this crazy set of feelings. Feel them all.
Yeah.
You just can't abuse people or like lie about them all the time, right? It doesn't mean that you should just be walking around like, I feel this right now and I feel this right now. Like, it just means make your energy and your words match, because
Yeah.
then you role model good mental health for your kids rather than, you run into a person, you're like, how are you? And they're like, I'm fine. And you're like, oh shit.
Not
They
actually.
are not fine.
Yeah.
Kids
Yeah.
live in families that are like that all the time.
Yeah.
The death knell being passive aggressive.
Yes.
Holy vey. Is there anything worse?
I mean, oh, I cannot. Yeah. I have
And I have
very
so
little
much
patience.
love for my passive aggressive parents because they're working so hard.
Yeah. 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 They're trying so hard. So
They're
you
trying so
mentioned
hard.
the parent encouragement program. Is
Do you
that
know it?
well, I know it because Catherine Reynolds Lewis,
Sure.
who's been on my
Yep.
show, she wrote
Yep.
The Good News About Bad Behavior, and
Yeah. She's a friend of mine. Hmm.
oh, that's so cool. I didn't even know that. How awesome. Yeah, so she was on the show, probably back in the fall or late fall, something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and the things that she brought from the parent encouragement program are like, it's just making me realize like I need to look this program up between the two of you talking about it.
Yeah, they're old school. They've been around a long, long time. And after I had my first kid and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, I started going to them and then I started teaching them. And then I was like, I'm going to start my own business. So, yeah, they do great work.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm gonna link to Catherine's conversation in the notes, and I'm also gonna link to the parent encouragement program because I think everybody can find help with that.
they do that amazing thing, which is really hard these days, which misery loves company in the best ways. So there's nothing worse than feeling like a failure and thinking you're the only one.
Yeah.
And then when you go to a group class, the judging mind, all you do is line yourself up. Oh, she's really a mess. I'm better than that. Right? um, and yeah, our judging mind does that chronically. You can't really stop it. It's how we're built. But you feel in community and you feel like, oh, we're really all in this together. I don't have to lie. I don't have to hide around how hard this is or how hard my kid is, or
Yeah. Yeah.
just so healthy.
Yeah. And it feels so good. There's such a good feeling of like, oh, I belong here. I'm heard. I'm
Yes.
seen. They get it. Like somebody gets it. With my tendon disorder, there was a summer where I lost all but 5% or so use of my thumb tendons. And when that happens, everything goes. Like you lose everything in your hands, your wrists, all the muscles decay. It's horrible. And it all has to do with breaking up scar tissue. Like my tendons scar fat quickly. So like it's painful, the recovery is painful as well. But the reason I bring it up is because at that point, I started having anxiety attacks. I started having these weird body reactions. My doctor later said some people get a rash when they have anxiety. You get these like weird tinglings and stuff. So it was recommended at that point that I find a psychologist, somebody like that I get therapy. I ended up finding a psychologist, and one was recommended to me. I called and left a message saying, "Here's my problem." He left me a message back saying, "That sounds like it must be so diminishing." And I was like, yes, he understands. Like, and he's to this day is still my therapist because he got it. He made me feel seen.
It's what Dan Siegel says, everybody wants to feel felt.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to feel felt.
So true.
And so much of the parenting world and parenting culture and the parenting experts, God bless us, there's a problem, the parents want it fixed, and we want to be in support, but 99% of life cannot be fixed.
Yeah.
It's endurance.
It must be endured.
So I keep coaching people around that we are frustration facilitators. We are walking our kids through what they cannot change.
Yeah. And
and
go ahead. Keep going.
No. And so that gentleman saying to you, naming just that one word of diminished, right? He wasn't going to fix your tendons. He wasn't going to take away pain. He wasn't going to make a promise or golf clap you or anything.
Yep.
All he did was reflect your feelings back to you accurately.
Yeah.
And you felt helped.
Yeah, I did.
Which in turn calms down your nervous system, which in turn calms down your anxiety.
Yeah.
Which in turn helps your pain.
Yeah. It's a virtuous cycle that, we can bring into the future. I love that too. So, okay. So we've got just a few minutes left, and I've got some questions, just kind of around the book. And again, pardon me, before we started recording, we were talking about the idea that like, we are, examples of people who are not doing everything right in the pandemic. Did the book, had it been written by were you writing this in the pandemic, or was it written prior?
No, this book was written 700,000 years ago.
And yet every word feels so true to now.
Yes. Well, and I said, I'm not going to put any data in it.
Yep.
Number one, I'm lazy.
I get that. I don't have a lot of data in mine either.
Number two, it immediately makes it obsolete. It's like driving a new car off the lot.
Yeah.
God bless those parenting experts. I'm friends with all of them that write the tech books. As soon as they release it, it's over. Doesn't exist. This doesn't, and they have to, keep rewriting. And when I had the strange opportunity of the publisher coming to me and asking me to write a book.
Wow, what a thrill.
Sure. I was like, oh, and then they're like, you should get an agent. I'm like, oh. But it's everybody using each other.
Yeah.
Right. So just so we're very clear, like I write for the Post supports me, publisher wants me because I write for the Post. You see?
I do. Yeah.
There's no virtue in any of this. There's no like, oh, Megan, you're so special. No. So I wrote a proposal with my agent, and it was awful. As I was writing it, it was so clinical and boring, and I could feel myself diminished by it. What a good word.
Yeah. I mean, I'm expressing empathy. I'm not saying your book is.
You're like, yes, you did write garbage. And no, so I turned it in to the publisher. They had not given me a real contract, and they were like, we hate this.
Oh, wow.
And it started to like die on the vine. And I called my publisher and I said, what do you want? He said, just do you. Just write how you talk, be who you are. Just, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do me. And so I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it. But it's really a book about what I hear people complaining about the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to be thoughtful questions at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much, at the end of each chapter.
Yep.
And I very much wanted to be a take it or leave it book. My, people are like, what is your big goal? I'm like, I just didn't want people to feel shittier after they read it.
I
They're
love
like,
that.
They're like, that's your goal? I'm like, uh-huh. I'm not highly aspirational because nobody really reads a parenting book and like hops out of bed and changes their life. They just really don't.
Can I just say that in a sense, what you have created is very similar to the vibe that my psychologist created with me. You're saying, you're not saying like, this is going to change everything. You're saying like, if it resonates, here it is. It's me. It's my ideas. It's my flaws. It's my, it's a reflection of my thinking. And that is so helpful because that's what people need. They need to feel like they're connecting with somebody real.
Right. And there are chapters where, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire a little, like the tech chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's chapters where I'm like, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, you're worried about all this stuff. Don't. It's no biggie. Like, they'll turn out okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last chapter I wrote, which is that nobody sees the invisible work. Like, there's no tally of all the times you don't yell. There's no tally of the Cheerios sweeped and the trombone run to school and you're not going to bed because you're listening to your teen talk about XYZ for the 50th time, or, there's no accounting for any of that silent work, that invisible work. And that matters. And I wanted people to know that because we live in such a visual, show-offy,
checklisty time.
Right. And yeah, I kind of want to just give a shout out to all those parents who just, grinding it through with some moments of joy, that actually adds up to a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the expression, the days are long, but the years are short.
Oh my
God. And it's like so freaking true.
And I'm trying to not be that mom now because mine are getting a little older too, definitely, where I see, the moms with babies and I'm not saying like, it goes so fast or I hope you enjoy it, because I wanted to throat punch people that said that to me.
And that is one final thing that I wanted to bring up about parenting outside the lines is there's so much humor in it. I knew who I was going to be talking to when I got in this interview today, and I think humor is such a big part of that.
Yeah.
How I guess the kind of the thing I want to go out on is like, how can humor, not mechanically, I'm not looking for like a breakdown of like what it actually does, but like, how could parents use humor, I guess, in their moments, that, in those moments where you're just like not feeling the funny.
It's funny because, humor is discussed a lot, and it's like that guy who's in charge of porn. I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's funny, right? Funny is so underrated in families. It's so unappreciated and underrated, and there's so many different kinds of humor. Absurdity, silliness, sarcasm veers into meanness, and isn't read well by kids. So that don't do that too much. You can be fun and sarcastic with your teens if they ride with it and get the messages. Humor, though, the Oprahfication of America, which, by the way, I love Oprah, though, was that everything needed to be discussed and hashed out and analyzed. And often things do, but a lot they don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just have a laugh and move on.
Yeah.
sometimes you can make fun of yourself. Like, I like to gather all my kids on the couch and say, I'm going to lecture you now because I know how well it works.
My mom used to talk about this too. My dad, we used to number his lectures, and my mom would be like, "Oh, which one's this? Number 47?" You know what I mean? Like,
amazing.
it was so good.
But thank God for your mom. We're living in absurd times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that parents aren't, a lot of us have had our humor crushed out of us, either by our own childhoods or experiences, or because we've forgotten. We've forgotten how to play and be funny and be silly. And some of us are very seriously temperamented and or more shy, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But
There's different kinds of humor for different kinds of people too.
But it's in there.
Yeah.
And so I'm always encouraging people to find it, even if it's just finding dad jokes and writing them down for your kids over and over, like a dad joke a day. I have a gift certificate for 2 cents from Banana Republic. They owed me 2 cents and they gave me a gift certificate. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So once a day, I give it to one of my kids and with a sticky, and I'm like, you mean so much to me. I just really want you to have this.
Love it.
WTF, mom, what's wrong with you? Or I leave like Legos, like in their pita sandwiches. I just, dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb things to laugh.
Yep.
It's good for the soul.
So true. So true. I'm really reluctant to end this conversation. It's been such a good one. It's gone so quickly as the best ones do.
Yeah, this has been so fun. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show, Meghan Leahy. Your website is mlparentcoach.com. There will be links in the show notes to it. Everybody go there, grab this book. It's awesome. And I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Meghan, for coming on the show. I also have a huge thank you to you all for listening. And I have a huge thank you to our producer, the man who always finds the funny. And it makes me so happy when he does. He is also the 23-time winner of the Husband of the Year Award. His name is Benjamin Culp. He's the voice you hear at the top of the show. And I don't know what I would do without him for all those reasons. Again, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time.